Did you know I give away a free art print when you sign up for my newsletter? Well, if you didn't know, now you do. All you got to do is go to my website. The pop-up is on the first page. Sign up for my newsletter and you get this free print for you. And that sounds like a lot of work. And then you can download this piece of art for you from me to say thank you. Really. I did this with 2 different stamps and a watercolor technique, and it's yours. From me to you, my way of saying thank you. In this video today, I'm sharing with you how I stamped on these craft cover notebooks. It looks easier than it is, and that's why I have some tips for you. So a couple of years ago, I bought these craft cover notebooks on Amazon because I like to have a little sketchbook that I can carry around with me that's not too bulky, and it's got nice creamy white pages. It's not heavy, but I just like the look of it, and I love craft paper, and I love craft paper with black ink. So the first one that I stamped, it's a flower. It's more like an abstract tulip that I carved years ago. And it's a fun design to play with, and I use it for different things. Flowers, of course, but I've also used it in a more abstract style. And that's what I did with this one. I think it turned out really cool. As you can tell, it's not even. It's not lined up perfectly, and I think that's okay. But when I did this, I posted on Instagram and I shared it with my followers there, and I gave them a questionnaire to let me know what percentage of people thought that it was okay for it to be off kilter, and what percentage of people thought, yeah, that really bugs me. And this is the result. So the majority of the people thought that it was okay for this to be a little askew. And I thought, good, because that's how all of my stuff is. Anyway, I also used one of my favorite flower stamps on this one. I like how it turned out. This one had a little mark on it. Where is it? This kind of stuff, it doesn't bother me. So stamping on craft paper or craft cardstock is pretty basic. It's pretty simple, clearly, but it can be a little tricky because of the surface of the craft paper. But if you play with your inks and your stamps regularly, you gain the experience of understanding how different inks and papers work together, because they are all kind of different. So stamping on this particular material, it took a little bit of preparation. Very simple. Just make sure that your ink pad is well inked. I've said it before, I'm going to keep saying it. There is nothing more useless than a dry or partially dry ink pad. You just can't do anything with it. You can't have any kind of project that you want to make. I get in the habit of, every time I buy an ink pad, most of the time, that I buy the re-inker or the refill bottle, because it's just more convenient. And when it's time for you to use it, you are going to be so glad that you have this, because you may think it costs a little bit extra money, and it does, but it's better than wasting money on an ink pad that's totally dry and useless. So it's worth it in the long run to go ahead and spend a little bit extra money so that you know that you have an ink pad that's going to be always ready to use when you're ready to make a project or stamp. So recently I bought 2 more of these craft notebooks, but these are from Mr. Pen. I will leave a link for it in my description. They're just a tad bit bigger. I feel like they're a little bit more sturdy. I don't know for sure. I haven't compared the cover weight and the paper weight. And I do like the way they stamped, and I'm going to show you how I did this. Because if you want to do something and you want to make sure that it's a little bit even, a little bit squared up, I have a few tips for you. So in this particular design, it's not lined up perfectly. It's sort of nested together, but I did stamp it out on a scrap piece of paper to see how it was going to work when I stamped it on the cover. I always add some kind of protective sheet right inside the front cover. It helps to protect the interior pages. It's just, a way to keep it less messy. All right, so a project like this, I want to make sure that my ink pad is ready to go, and I do re-ink it. It's very simple. You just make sure that the ink is shaken up well, run it across your ink pad, and then stop squeezing the ink bottle and just let the inks absorb into the ink pad. It may take a little bit of rubbing of the tip of the bottle across the ink pad, and that's okay. That's normal, but you will see it absorb into your ink pad. And I always check to make sure that I have enough ink on the stamp. It's a good idea to do a test print. I didn't do one in this particular case, but I just started. So I'm just going to start in the middle top and just kind of work my way across. So as I'm working through this, I realize that I'm going to have an empty spot on the second row on the left, but I'll show you how I solved that problem after I finish stamping the whole thing out, because I may have other areas that need addressing too. So what I do is I have my little riser box that I use. It's a little box that holds all of my stamping and carving supplies. Not all of them, but it's the perfect height. But what that does is it raises the notebook off the flat table, and that way I can sort of bend down the spiral to sort of make room for the stamped impression. And I think it makes sense when you see what I'm doing, and it's okay. I know that it's not going to be perfect. So I just sort of bend it down and then stamp firmly with my stamp. Okay, this next one is very straightforward, but I did sort of play it safe by stamping out a couple of sample swatches of this stamp and just laid it out on the notebook to see where it was going to land, just so I didn't have any surprises. Because even though this design fits perfectly on the cover, there was still a way to probably mess it up, because I could have found a way. One of the things I thought about doing, I knew I was going to get 6 stamped impressions on the cover of this notebook, so I decided to start in the middle, because that way the top and the bottom would probably, hopefully, be evenly placed out. I think stamping on a notebook cover can be a little bit intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. Leave a comment below and let me know if you try this, or if you've tried other stamp projects with notebooks, notebook covers. I'd love to hear about that. Oh, there's one more thing. I want you to watch this. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.